Alright everyone, this is Shaun Campbell again. This is part 2 of my weightlifting journey. Okay, this is from high school onward. So I'm just going to talk about actually all of high school, from grade 9 to high school back then went to grade 13. So grade 9 to grade 13. As I mentioned in part 1, when I went into high school, I literally, and this is the truth, I weighed only 80 pounds going into grade 9. Okay, so just to confirm that, I wrestled at 84 pounds and under, and this is in grade 9. So I'm really looking forward to going to high school so I could join the wrestling team. And yeah, that's where I started playing around with weights again a little bit in grade 9 at the high school gym. So it's the first time ever being part of a gym, per se. So it was a high school gym. They had the universal machine with the pull-ups and the stack with the press. And we actually had a bench press as well. What else? We had the lap pull down, all that kind of stuff in there. Some dumbbells, adjustable dumbbells and stuff like that. So yeah, so I just played around with the weights for like grade 9, 10, and 11 probably. But I do remember, and it's probably due to the fact that I was only 80 pounds, I was really good at the pull-ups. So I do a lot of pull-ups and everyone was always like, oh my God, look at all the pull-ups you can do. And then another little interesting thing, I had these little lats. Before anyone really called them lats, we used to call them wings, or we didn't know what they were, but I could flex them. And everyone was always like, oh my gosh, show me the lats, show me the lats. I don't even know if we even called it V-taper back then. We always called it just wings. Because no one really knew, because back then weight training, weightlifting, and bodybuilding and all that wasn't hugely popular, okay? It was like a little sub-culture of people who were like bodybuilders. But nowadays it's way more popular. So yeah, so in grade 9, 10, 11, I was just really more lifting weights here and there, just to help me out with wrestling. So I was really into wrestling at that point. And I ranged anywhere from my first year of wrestling. I was in grade 9. I wrestled at the 84 pounds and under weight class. The next year I bulked up. I was wrestling at the 90 pound weight class. Then finally I sort of hit puberty. So for grade 11, I believe I wrestled at the 112 pound weight class. And I didn't really cut a lot of weight, so I was probably under 120 for sure. So I wrestled at 112. And yeah, so so it's the following year, grade 12, when I really got into the weight training, and I really started loving the weight training. And I even had a Muscle Mag subscription, if any of you guys know about Muscle Mag International. So in the 80s and 90s, that was a hugely popular magazine. So when you got a subscription, they actually sent the magazine to your house. And it came out monthly, so I had a monthly subscription, so I was like an avid reader of every Muscle Mag I could get my hands on. And yeah, so I read all those. I started following the programs. I started making the shakes. I started doing the weight gaining shakes. And back then, protein shakes weren't so good, let me tell you. And they didn't even have, I don't even think we even had the meal replacement or protein bars back then. But yeah, so the protein drinks tasted terrible. They even didn't have flavors. They just had them like in natural flavor. And you mix it to your shake, it tastes terrible. But I was always making the weight gainer shakes because I was so small, obviously, that I was adding like ice cream. So I'd add like, so if you had the terrible tasting protein powder and some milk, and then you throw a couple raw eggs, because we used to eat the whole raw eggs, I'd click them and drop them just like Rocky Balboa. So you drop those in there, and then I would add a couple scoops of chocolate ice cream. And literally, those are my weight gainer shakes. And since I was so thin, and I guess my metabolism was probably rocking and rolling because I used to jog, I used to do wrestling, and I wanted to get bigger and all this stuff, and you're also growing, I was probably burning off a lot of calories. And I have no idea what kind of calories would be in those shakes because we didn't do macro counting back then. We might have looked at the calories on the labels and stuff like that, because the goal was to eat as many calories as possible and then try to get as much protein. And I would even eat tuna out of the can. And I started trying to eat, I even tried one time eating tuna with Coke in a blender, but it just tasted terrible. Because I was getting really addicted to my blender because I wasn't a really big eater. So these blender shakes were killing it. I was taking them like 2-3 times a day. And I had the ice cream and everything, right? So yeah, so I always had a blender to wash, and my mom at the time, would always wash them for me. My blender would always nice and clean. But by the time I do my next shake, yeah, those are the days, right? And yeah, so that was that'd have been grade 12. So it'd have been 17, 18 in grade 12. And I was weighing probably that's when I started getting really serious about the weight training and taking my shakes and following these programs at a Muscle Mag and all that kind of stuff. I was probably weighing about 120 pounds. And I was thinking I was getting huge, right? So I was eating as much as I could. I was working out as hard as I could. I was starting to get really into the weights. So for that year in grade 12, I was probably really into the weight room. I was starting to sort of neglect a little bit of my wrestling. And I was putting on weight and everything. And I even started wearing stuff like, if anyone else here from the 80s or 90s, crazy wear pants. They're kind of baggier pants, like the Velcros here. And kind of like MC Hammer pants. I don't know. They're called crazy wear pants. Every bodybuilder or bodybuilder wannabe would wear them, right? So I had crazy wear pants and the other crazy wear, like the oversized sweater thing that everyone was wearing at the time. So I thought it was cool. I was wearing all that stuff because I saw them in the Muscle Mags. So that was my thing. So I was really getting into the weightlifting. Then by the time I came back to high school in grade 13, I was all the way up to like about 135 to 140 pounds. So I was huge, I thought. Like I was really bulking up for me, right? Considering I came from 80 pounds in grade 9, but then you have to factor in grade 9 I didn't hit puberty yet, all that kind of stuff. I was a late bloomer. So I didn't really start growing until probably grade 11. So by the time I was in grade 13, I got all the way up to almost 140 pounds. Because my goal is to hit 140 pounds. So I got up all the way almost to 140. And I began wrestling at 134 pounds. Without cutting any weight, because I made a goal that I was going to train as hard as I could. I was going to practice as hard as I could. I was going to put a lot of energy into doing well in wrestling. And just because it was my last year of high school, I want to prove to myself I could do the best I could. Because I was sort of slacked off the year prior because, I don't know, it was first time having a girlfriend, all that kind of stuff. You know how it is, right? So first girlfriend, first time getting in, I was really into my weightlifting and all that kind of stuff and spending every second with her, right? So yeah, so I kind of slacked off in grade 12. I still wrestled, but I wasn't as serious. And I still did okay, the local tournaments and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't take it to the next level. So I made a vow because I kind of felt like I slacked off to take to the next level the following year. But I also wanted to wrestle at my natural weight, meaning like what I weigh. I'm not going to like run around garbage bags on and all that kind of stuff like you see wrestlers doing. I just want to wrestle at what I weighed in good shape. And me in good shape was like 134 pounds. So I probably weighed 132, 133, 132. So it worked out great. I was 134. So I wrestled 134. I did pretty well. I did pretty well that year. I actually had my best year ever. I had good energy. I felt strong. I was confident. Probably because all the working out and everything, I felt confident in myself. And the funny thing is, I was only 134 pounds, okay? And I was probably almost the same height I am now, so whatever. So I was not big by any means, but I was working out and I probably had some definition and all that kind of stuff because I'm naturally lean. So I had a complete physique, I guess you would say, because I was working out every muscle group. I was even working out legs. So I had the separated quads at 134 pounds though. So they weren't big, but we wore if you're in wrestling, if you know, we wear these little singlets that kind of reveal your physique. So if you have any good quads, right, you're going to see, because these things are short, and then they get the straps, and they're tight. Now that I think about it, it's kind of crazy that I would wear that around high school without feeling foolish. So yeah, so just look up a wrestling singlet. You'll know what I'm talking about. So yeah, people would ask. One of the guys I trained with, who was an older guy, he was a kind of a assistant coach because he was one of the veterans of the wrestling team. I went to AVSS Vikings in St. Thomas. So he's one of the veterans there. His name was Dave Allen. Just throwing out names, I don't know. His name was Dave Allen. And he asked me if I was on steroids. And I didn't even know what steroids were at the time. I'm in grade 13, the beginning of grade 13, this during wrestling season, so it's in the spring of grade 13. And he's asked me if I'm on steroids. And I didn't know much about it, but obviously you start to learn more about it because the more you get into it, even back then, we're talking, I graduated high school in 91. So we're talking 1990, 1991. There were steroids in high schools. I didn't know much about it, but I started to figure out about it because a couple of the guys that I knew that I would work out with in the weight room started taking steroids. And then there was even a guy on a wrestling team, but I'm not going to throw anything out about, I'm not going to throw any names out there just because when you talk about steroids, it's kind of like we get people in hot water, right? But there was a guy on the wrestling team that was heavily on steroids and he gained a lot of size, right? And that's how we started finding out about steroids. And he couldn't even wrestle any longer because he couldn't go to the national level because I guess they threatened that if he goes to the national level that he's going to be tested. So he just went, I think he went and won the Ontario's, I don't know the exact details, but he won the Ontario's at heavyweight, but he's like short, but he went from like a guy at, like he gained like 50 pounds basically over a couple year period. But anyway, that's when he first found out about steroids. So yeah, people ask me, I went from 120 to almost 140 over 1 year, but this is during my growth spurt that I finally had, right, because I was a late bloomer. And also I was eating all the weight gainer shakes and all that kind of stuff. And I guess they're so used to seeing me being so small and frail that the guy asked me, yeah, if I was a full-grown adult and I put on 20 pounds, yeah, ask me if I'm on steroids. But I was like a teenager who actually grew a couple inches in height and finally started to become a man, or whatever you want to call it. I got to 135, yeah, so he asked me if I was on steroids. I'm like, I don't even know what you're even talking about. But by the time grade 13 was over, I did know about steroids because I heard of other people doing all that kind of stuff. But that's when I figured, when I look back now, I was a natural bodybuilder before I even knew about natural bodybuilding, let alone bodybuilding, and I didn't work out at all looking to compete or anything like that because it didn't even seem like it was an option. You look at the muscle mags, these are the guys who competed. They were freaks. It was a really, really small little world of competitors. It wasn't until later down the road, like late 90s, that I found out about competing in natural bodybuilding. But I'll get into that story later because I'm just going to take it up to high school here. So I'm going to stop the story at grade 13. So I got up to my maximum weight about 140 because my goal was, by the time I ended high school, I wanted to get up to 140 pounds. That was my big goal. And I think I did finally break it. I might have got to 140, 141. But this is also like by weight gainer shakes and all kinds of stuff. Almost like, I guess you call it force feeding, right? And it wasn't like I was eating like a low-fat diet. I was eating, I even put flaxseed oil in it. I put ice cream, all that kind of stuff, right? So that was my weight gainer shakes. And yeah, so I had my best year, in grade 13. I did really well. And I was even going to wrestle, the talk was me wrestling for the University of Western Ontario on the wrestling team. So I went to the university right after grade 13. I'll get into that story later, but I'll just tell you this little part. I went to grade 13, after grade 13 I went to University of Western Ontario. I was supposed to go for the wrestling team and all this kind of stuff. Because my coach that I worked with our local team, our local club coach, he knew the wrestling coach at Western, already talked about him and everything, so I was going to go there, we're going to enter the team and join the team and wrestle for the University of Western Ontario at, I believe, 134 or somewhere around that weight class. But by the time I got there, I was so hooked into weightlifting. Even though I didn't have great genetics, I was never going to be this big bodybuilder, but I loved the idea of building my physique and going to the weight room, and I loved the feeling of the weight room. I loved it more than I actually enjoyed wrestling, if that makes sense. So I enjoyed the feel of pumping up rather than rolling around on the mat. and also when you're from Canada or the area I was from, wrestling didn't get a lot of like, I don't know, popularity or exposure. Like if you're on the wrestling team, you could be the best guy in the wrestling team like I was all through high school, be the best guy in the wrestling team, no one cares. But who do they care about? You could be on a losing basketball team, but be on the basketball team or the football team, basketball or football, and even have a losing record, but way more popular than the guys on the wrestling team who are winning all the conference championships, winning their weight class at all these tournaments. So basically, you're the star on the wrestling team, but you're getting no whatever, no exposure, no whatever. You know what I'm saying? So just the motivation just wasn't there. But I felt very motivated, and the feedback I was getting from working out with weights. Even though I wasn't big by any means, but I do remember, this is going to sound really weird, but I remember hearing from a friend. My friend came to me, this was in the summer of grade 13, because I think I was probably running around with like a tank top on and shorts. But I was starting to get really confident in myself, so I was wearing tank tops and shorts. This is stuff I would never do when I was younger, because I was always a skinny little kid. And mind you, I always do this naturally, so that time was never an option, because I didn't even know about steroids until grade 13. I heard about it with these people. So I built this physique with hard work and all this stuff, and I was feeling pretty confident myself. And if I look back, see, I don't have any pictures from then, because we didn't take pictures. We didn't have social media and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have any pictures to reflect back on, but I was, let's just say if I'm 135, 140 pounds, I'm not big. But I probably was, like, because no one really worked out hard with weights back then, or no one worked like a full body type workouts back then. And also the summer I get a really good tan and all that kind of stuff. But I remember the guy told me, oh yeah, the girls were talking, and one of the girls, I had a girlfriend at the time, so I couldn't act upon anything, right? Like I wasn't looking to meet anyone, because I had a steady girlfriend from grade 11 till probably grade 13, into my first year of university. Then the university thing happens, and then people will lose their girlfriends most of the time, right? So one of my friends told me that, oh yeah, such and such, so-and-so was talking, these girls were talking, and they were saying that you had one of the best physiques of all the guys in like high school. And I was like, what? So that was kind of like the biggest boost of my confidence ever, right? So I'm hooked on weights now, right? I'm finally getting that confidence from like I'm still a shy guy, and I still don't talk to a lot of girls, but it made you feel good that girls were finally noticing me, instead of being the small little cute funny guy. So yeah, so it was kind of like, whatever. That was kind of like one of those moments too that, you know, you always remember certain things. That was one of the weird things I remember, right? So yeah, so that's my story from grade 9 to grade 13, right before going into university. So I'll tell you some university stories and all that kind of stuff about the weight rooms. They had a great weight room at the university. And me and my buddy, my really good friend Rob Langell, we just do a lot of crazy workouts at the University of Western Ontario weight room gym. And then we go jogging all across, like we did crazy shit. So I'll tell you some of those stories in part 3. So this is part 2, basically my high school experience with weights, and the first time I ever got like real gains in the weight room. And yeah, that's it. So part 3 is coming up. This is raw and unedited, so I'm putting it up just like this.